Looks like it is 8 o'clock. Rab looks like he's running late. I haven't heard anything from him. So I'm going to get those things started. It is 8:02. Rab is fashionably late, and I don't want to keep our guests waiting all night. Bariatric Bubba, what's happening? It is 8 o'clock. Happy Taco Tuesday. Welcome to the Bari Meal Experience, where we talk about all things bariatrics, but from the male perspective. We have a great show lined up tonight because we are actually talking GLP-1, and we're going to have three gentlemen from the GLP-1 community joining us. And before we start that, I'm just going to go over what we have going on in the community. Don't forget that every Sunday night, our sister chat, Talk Bari to Me with VSG Bestie, is live every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific. Don't forget that every Monday she has the Talk Bari to Me Coaching Corner, and that goes live at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific. Every Taco Tuesday, your boys from BME, like today, same bat time, same bat channel. Bari Mother is live on Wednesdays with her Water Check Wednesdays, and she is live at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, 6:15 Central, 5:15 Mountain, and 4:15 Pacific. Our friends over at the Waiting Table are live every Wednesday. They go live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and they do a happy hour, half hour, where they talk about their NSBs. And then from 9 to 10, they are live on Instagram and YouTube. I still don't know if I'm supposed to be saying that live, but I am. But they are live. Check them out. They have a good show tomorrow. They're going to have Nat on. And she just got done with her skin removal. So
skin surgery, yep.
That'll be a good one. Don't forget that Mel Unfiltered is every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain, and 6 p.m. Pacific. The Bariatric Lock-In is live on Fridays with Bariatric Bubba at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific. And then our friends over at Love After Bariatrics, they are live on Sundays, and I saw them live at 9 p.m. So after Talk Bari to Me, they were live. They had a lively session going on. I dropped in for a while, showed some love, dropped a bunch of gifts, and I had to go to bed because I had to go to work. But I think Shar dropped in there at some point because I remember she shared a lot too. Talk Bari to Me is in the house. What's happening? Kia, what's happening? Welcome into the live. Don't forget to tap the screen. We have a ton of likes tonight. Let's get ourselves onto the FYP. And if you're hanging out on the FYP and you're checking us out, just join us. Just hop on in the comments, engage, hang out with us. It's going to be a vibe for the next hour or so. Biggie is sleeveless with a sling and a tie.
Hey, but at least I show up. Where's Rab at?
You know, the dynamic duo, it's going to be us tonight. What can I say?
Sounds like that's what it's going to be. I'll take one for the team.
You know, Biggie only had to get himself cut wide open and repaired, and he still showed up. I'm not sure where Rab is. Selma, welcome in. All right, so enough of dogging on Rab, but I'm sure he'll show up.
We can spend a whole show doing that.
I know. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
We're going to invite our guests up right now. All right.
Welcome, 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 gentlemen.
Welcome on. Welcome on. Welcome in. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
That's awesome. Jay, welcome back, man. Thank you very much for connecting me with these fine gentlemen right here and helping me get this panel together.
Oh, I'm happy to. I'm just happy that you allowed me to invite these amazing guys here because they are superstars, and I'm going to pale in comparison to the knowledge that they have. Trust me.
I know you definitely dropped some gems for us last month when you were on, and it prompted me to be like, you know what, this conversation can't stop here. We're gonna have to have another conversation. So I appreciate you coming back on and educating us all on GLP-1s. I know that I had some reservations about it, but I know that Biggie had a lot of questions last time, and I'm glad that we have a panel of men here that have enough experience to help us through any questions that we might have.
So starting it off, what made you guys decide to go the GLP-1 route over some of these other options out there, such as a natural weight loss or if you guys had weight loss surgery on top of this, or you decided to go GLP-1 instead of the weight loss surgery route?
Mike, we'll start with you.
So for me, one of my best friends had bariatric surgery about 10 or 12 years ago. And, I'm in the gay community, right? And within the community I'm in, there's a lot of oversized guys that have bariatric surgery. And I've seen that over 15 years, the number of guys that have done really well. And then, 5-10 years in and have rebounded back pretty significantly. And so I've always been nervous about going through with the surgery. And in my case, I got type 2 diabetes, and it was an option immediately of do this or that. And I said, let me just try the meds first and see if I respond. And I have. I'm down 30% of my body weight in 15 months, which is, what I would have hoped for from bariatric surgery. So,
wow. That's awesome. Zach, what about you?
Well, first things first, what flavor ProCare multivitamin should I have tonight?
My favorite one is that orange mango.
All right, that's what I'll go with in a minute here.
That is the go-to every single time if I have one left. I wish they sold those ones by themselves.
Hey, you never know, one day. But I'm actually, I call myself a former bariatric patient. I often find myself describing my journey as far from easy. I've had several bariatric procedures starting when I was 16 years old. I started with the lap band. I was one of the youngest people in my state at the time to have it done. It was successful for a while until the band slipped at some point, and I ended up having to have it removed. At that time it was removed, I was supposed to consent to either having a sleeve or a bypass, and I was just sewn up because I had so much scar tissue from the band that they had to spend the rest of surgery chiseling it out, and decided that I was too high of a leak risk for a staple line at that time. So I had to wait another year for my next procedure. At that point, I did end up having the sleeve with a hiatal hernia repair. And unbeknownst to me, only 10% of my stomach was in fact removed, and the retained fundus, that round stretchy part, was used to pull the hiatal hernia down and wrap around the hernia to prevent it from going up above my diaphragm again. And at some point that came undone. My stomach went back to normal anatomy and the weight came back on with it. So I ended up then having a reflux procedure, and the doctor that did the reflux procedure used to do bariatric surgery before going a different direction. And he basically said to me, if it wasn't for your cool staple line, I would have never known you had bariatric surgery. So that's always great to know. But I've had many ups and downs with it. But I got sick with a bunch of digestive issues, had to go to a bunch of different doctors, 3-4 gastroenterologists, Cleveland Clinic, finally found out that my liver was sick. And that's what ultimately led me to start on a GLP-1.
For me, I tried the natural route 3,000 times, like most of us have. Succeeded, failed. And then I never considered the bariatric route because no medical professional ever brought it to my attention as an option for me. They just never had the conversation. And so the first option that was brought to me was the GLP-1 option as alternative for me. And so as the first alternative for me, it worked out pretty well so far. And so have gone that route. And so I'm pretty happy so far.
Now, what has you guys' experience been like in the first few weeks of taking a GLP-1, physically, emotionally, socially? How does the impacts of the GLP-1s reflect to the different other options you guys have tried in the past?
So, can I just say, I think there's difference. When we talk GLP-1, I think it's important that we distinguish whether we're on sort of tirzepatide or semaglutide, because I think the experiences can be very different between the two medications. I'm on tirzepatide, in my case, Manjaro, and you know, I had almost no side effects at all. It took me 3 weeks, and in 3 weeks, the food noise shut off, and my brain just sort of was like, "Oh, I don't need to graze anymore." And that for me was freeing. It wasn't something that made me emotional. It can for a lot of people, because when the food noise quiets, your brain suddenly has a lot more room to think about a lot of other things. It didn't in my case, thank God. But it was a really easy transition for me. I've almost had no side effects. The mild constipation, but once you figure out what your sort of perfect mix of supplements is, I think for a lot of people it's manageable. Not everybody, but again, that might have been a very different answer for my friends that took Ozempic. So
Yeah, and I've been on Manjaro the entire time on my GLP-1 journey, and I am team no side effects. I've had absolutely no side effects my entire 2 years on Manjaro. It's been a really great experience. The first thing I did notice was about 2 days in, it was Cinco de Mayo. I was in front of a plate of some free chips and salsa, and I got bored. Literally, I was like, this is the most boring thing in the world. And that's when I realized, oh shit, something has changed. And that feeling comes and goes. It's not consistent where I'm bored by food, but at times I'll generally, it's just a feeling of boredom where it's the least interesting thing in the world for me, like to have to consume food. I'll still consume food because I can eat at any point because I don't have food aversion. I don't have like appetite suppression where I can't eat. Like I can eat at any point. But like it'll just be uninteresting for me, like deeply uninteresting, and that will happen. But my relationship with food has changed, and I'm happy that it's changed, where doesn't consume my every waking thought. Like one of my favorite things in the world is waking up and not thinking of food, and like waking up ravenous, and all think about is food as soon as I wake up in the morning. That used to be my life. And like having that thought of what am I having for breakfast? Then while I'm having breakfast, thinking, what I'm having for lunch. And while I'm having lunch, thinking, what I'm having for dessert. Like just that constant thought and that headspace being food. I feel like an idiot thinking back on the fact that how much of my life was consumed with this small portion of what life is about. And it makes me kind of sad just reflecting on it.
And for me, I'm team compound. I'm the guy who's been on compounded versions of the GLP the entire time, and I've been on both semaglutide and tirzepatide. I spent 59 weeks of my journey on semaglutide, which the best way to describe it is a blunt force object in terms of silencing my hunger. Because my experience with it was basically as soon as I injected with it, I actually felt restriction almost instantly when I was on semaglutide. It felt like I had my lap band back. Like the only way I could describe it is feeling like my stomach actually restricting. But after I kind of maxed out on that, I switched over to tirzepatide, and I'm now in maintenance. One kind of semaglutide for me was a little bit more aggressive with the food restriction. The tirzepatide had made me think about food a lot less. So it was an interesting experience. Also switching from one to the other, that was kind of unique. I know a bunch of other people have done it as well, but that's just kind of how my journey has gone, and I'm now working to find a happy medium of where I'm not gaining or losing on a dose, and that's also kind of a fun journey to figure out with my provider.
So, Jay, you said something about like you have that boredom now. So, have you guys found that with the silencing of the food hunger and you don't have the food noise and you're not reaching for the first thing like when you do get bored? Because that's one of my problems is that if I'm bored, especially because during the work week I'm fine, but the minute the weekend hits and there's not a ton of stuff going on keeping me occupied, I find myself like wandering over to the pantry, wandering over to the fridge. Like, what do you guys do to combat that stuff? Like, if you don't have the food hunger, like, what are you guys doing to keep yourself busy? Have you guys like discovered new things to do? Like, especially with some of your weight loss, like we always talk about our NSVs and things that we weren't able to do for a long time. Like, what have you guys found to do?
We spend, well, I can't say we. What I can say is I spend an inordinate amount of time on TikTok now. And talking about the fact that I no longer have food noise and figuring out what to do with that extra headspace, and talking about that. And also getting movement in. And now I have a dog to take up extra time as well. And also figuring out things to drink with my water as well. I'm still working on things to do with that extra headspace. It doesn't mean I don't have the old habit sometimes though of just walking to the fridge. That habit is hard to break. Of just walking to the fridge. Like I'll still do that sometimes. I'll open the fridge, but then I'll be like, you actually aren't hungry. Because that's a 40-year-old habit of just opening the fridge. And then I'll close it immediately because I'm like, you really don't want to eat anything.
Yeah, I find that I still walk to the fridge, but it's not that all food is boring. It's that the food that is boring is often different than what it was before. So I just posted about something like this, but like anything I was after for the longest time was cinnamon, right? Like cinnamon buns, cinnamon toast crunch. I've lost all interest in cinnamon, but I suddenly like dark chocolate, which I used to hate. And so I will find myself, you can find empty bags just laying all around here of like skinny dipped almonds. Yeah, exactly. It's wild because it's just a different set of habits. I have a lot of things that have nuts in them now. And so like Jay, I think it's going to be a commonality just because we're all people from TikTok, that sort of transfer addiction ended up being TikTok, which is interesting as well. I take a lot more time, but I will tell you, I do a lot more walking. I won't call it quite hiking, but it's walking in the woods in more rigorous ways than I would have ever done in the past because I couldn't walk 2 blocks without being in pain before.
Yeah. Movement's definitely something that you take up to try to quiet things.
Yep.
Easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely significantly increased my amount of time in the gym. I'm up to 4 to 5 days a week now, and it's something that previously I probably would have been thinking about what my next meal was supposed to be, but I don't have that, and it's honestly just kind of freeing to know that you can actually do these physical things as well. For me, like I've been working on 5Ks and running them, and I just ran my personal best at the end of June at an outdoor one. I finished in just under 34 minutes. Immediately threw up as soon as I was done, but I feel like they say that can happen, but I didn't think about food like that. That's the thing. Like I used to think about it all the time. And it honestly, unless I set reminders for myself sometimes about eating, I'm really like not thinking about it. And I've had to, as this maintenance journey is like getting started for me, I've had to be really aggressive about reminding myself to eat or get that extra protein in or whatever, on top of the fact that I'm also going to the gym a lot more and I need to be eating even more. So it's a whole balance that I'm now spending time trying to figure out in a completely different way. Maybe it's not that I'm not thinking about food. I'm completely reframed how I'm thinking about it, about how necessary it is now.
Now, question with that then, if you're in that maintenance phase, has it run through your mind that maybe it's time for me to come off the GLP-1 and see how much I've adapted and I've changed my mindset to be allowing me to restrain myself in the eating, since I am doing all these workouts and things like that? Has that been an option, or is this an option for you guys? You guys are talking about doing this the rest of your lives.
So the thought has crossed my mind, but I think it's personal to everyone that's on the medication. It's not like on bariatric, like when you're a bariatric surgery patient, you can just stop having a bypass unless something pretty drastic action has to be taken, to get rid of the tool at that point. This is obviously one that you have the ease of just not taking. The body takes a very long time to adjust a set weight point. Some research shows that the hypothalamus can take up to 6 years to adapt and reset a set weight point for the body. So just the fact that I'm 83 weeks into this journey, I'm nowhere near 6 years, even if to say that I am waiting to hit like a certain mark. Maybe my body adjusts sooner, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But I also do fully believe at the core of my heart that obesity is a disease, and if you stop treating the disease will return. And I need every single tool to prevent that. And if that means slowly reducing my dose, but always staying on one that helps me maintain where I'm at, or get to the goals that I want to composition-wise, but I am maintaining my overall health and nutrition, then I am completely at ease at this point at staying on it. I never reached the max dose of trizepatide. So in the event I started gaining weight and it's fat and it's not muscle and things like that, I can work with my provider to scale back up on the medication and try and continue to get off regain or things like that. I think this is going to be a very unique maintenance journey, and I think it's very too early to tell how soon maybe someone could come off the medication. We've seen a lot of short-term data that shows that people come off, they don't maintain some of the lifestyle choices and habits that they've done, and weight comes back. But again, that data also does indicate that lifestyle wasn't also maintained. And that can be for a variety of reasons. I know people who have stopped for various reasons, and their inflammation came roaring back, and they felt they couldn't move and couldn't go to the gym anymore. And what happens now if you're moving less? Good chance is the scale is going to start to creep up if you're not in a calorie deficit anymore. So there's a lot of these medications are way more than just weight. And I think that's the part that doesn't get communicated a lot. It's a very systematic thing. And then the weight loss has extra benefits for our bodies. And what ultimately helps us maintain and maybe get us to that decision of if we want to go off the medicine or not.
Now, how important do you guys think it is to start making those lifestyle changes while still on a GLP-1? Because to me, that's like even having bariatric surgery. That was one of the most important key things to me, was making that lifestyle change for a long-term benefit. Because even with the bariatric, 2 years, 3 years post-op, that tightness and that hungerness is going to come back no matter what. GLP-1s, like I said, it's still out there right now that GLP-1s may eventually go away, might not be available for a lot of people. How important do you think it's for people who are on the GLP-1s to work on their addictions and their food hunger and their food noise, and making a lifestyle change, so if something does go away, that they're setting themselves up to be a little bit more successful and have a better chance of being successful?
I think of it in there's three different ways I actually look at it. There's not one straight answer I have for this one, because biologically it affects people in very different ways. Because there's not one set way obesity is in everyone's body. There's not one level of obesity because there are lots of people with obesity where it's basically incidental, where they have a level of obesity where they just had one incident of obesity where it's basically they had an incident, a hormonal incident, and they just need their body corrected. For right now, they've been thin their whole life and they need it corrected, and basically this medicine is correcting it, and they can go back to living the life that they've always lived. And they don't have to change one single thing, right? And the medicine corrected that. And they can continue to live the life they live. But then there are people that have if have had a lifestyle where they were legitimately an influx of ultra processed foods, an influx of not used to having any kind of consistent movement, right? And they have to make lifestyle changes to actually see changes, right? Because their biology, the way that it's set up, they need to see all that additional, those elements so they can see the scale move for them, so they can see those health changes be beneficial, right? And then there are people that are like me, that I have been obese my entire life. And I have a level of obesity that is permanent and will become roaring back if I don't maintain 300 minutes of movement every week. If I don't maintain a healthy lifestyle of a specific kind of diet, where I have to maintain a GLP-1 medication, where there are things I have to do to have a baseline of health. So yeah, lifestyle is important, but I think there are levels to this. It's a nuanced approach. Yes, I think lifestyle is important for everyone, but the level of changes that have to be implemented is going to vary. And people have to make the best choices for them based on their biology and what they can maintain that's sustainable.
Yeah, and I would just say that the medication gave me the space to be able to make the lifestyle changes, probably like you found with bariatric surgery. I think the biggest difference that I've seen from me versus my friends that had bariatric is because tirzepatide specifically really works on the inflammation in your body very instantaneously. I went from not being able to walk 2 blocks to being able to walk 20 minutes in 3 weeks, right? I hadn't lost more than 10 pounds. I was 360 pounds at the time, but I could make that happen. And so it gave me the space to be able to make the lifestyle changes. Now, there are people in our community, you hear a lot about people, the discontinuation rate is really high on these medications. And that's because, unlike what happens with bariatric patients, my husband's a doctor who worked with bariatric patients, they get a whole support system starting from the beginning, right? I mean, you literally have to go through psychiatric evaluations, at least 10 years ago you did, in order to get surgery. With us, you can get these meds. My doctor handed me a box of medication and gave me no more information, right? And you need to build up those supports in order to do it. So a lot of people fail at this because there's not the support. And there's access issues. I don't think these meds are ever going away. There's so many more coming down the pike, but there's access issues. But for me personally, it gave me the space to be able to make the changes I needed to make this happen. And that's what made the difference for me. And I just can't state enough, the big difference for me was the inflammation just like that. Like, it was like, oh my God, I'm in a body of someone 10 years younger within 2 weeks.
All right, so I want everyone to hold their thoughts right there. We're halfway through the live right now, so everyone just sit back, take a sip, stay hydrated. Just want to remind everyone, don't forget to check out our sister chat with Talk Bari Me with our friend BSG Bestie. She is live every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Pacific. We are actually shouting out something because Shar has something great going on. She has a code for an event coming up in Irvine, California. It is being hosted by Obesity Help. It is the Obesity Help 2025 National Conference. It is happening October 17th and 18th in Irvine, California, at the Hilton Irvine. It is 2 days of support, education, and meaningful connections. There's a ton of sponsors. Some of those sponsors are Premier Protein, Bariatric Fusion, Bare Bones, Audacious Nutrition, Celebrate Vitamins, Legendary Foods, and of course, our friends over at ProCare Health. If you guys are interested in that, you can go over to obesityhelp.com. Shar, drop it in the comments. I'm not sure if you have a link on your page or on the Talk Bari page, but if you use the code VSGBestie20, that'll save you $20 right off the bat, and we all love to save money.
That is an amazing event. If you're a patient and you've never been to it, from a personal experience, I've been there many times. It's worth going at least once.
Nice.
See, that's great. See, personal experience. This is how we learn about where to go, where we can get our information, how to educate ourselves, and how to connect with other people in the community. So that's awesome. I want you guys to. So obviously, I know we all talked about. I think Biggie and I both can agree with you guys. Transfer addiction is real for us, and one of the transfer addictions we've had is obviously being on this platform. It's kind of taken over our lives to the point where, we found community. We love spending time with this community. We love helping to educate people coming into the community and just supporting people, in the weight loss community itself. So all the great things that happen in this community, we know there's a dark side of this community. And there's two parts of the dark side of this community. There is the people who come in and they criticize us for the tool or the path that we've chosen on our weight loss journey. And then we have people within our greater community who, criticize us for what we're doing during our journey. So I'm not sure. I mean, for the bariatric patients, we get a lot of it, from people like, oh, you had surgery, you cheated, you took the easy way out. And then we have the people that, we have the food police. You shouldn't be eating that. You shouldn't be doing that. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to gain all your weight back. I was successful. You're doing it all wrong. What do you guys experience from the GLP-1 side of the community?
All of the above. And I think slightly different. Well, I think you guys have seen this on your end for a while, but there's a gold rush going on. So there's a lot of people who are coming in as sort of wellness experts that are going to tell us how to do this. And if you look at what the science behind what they're telling us to do is, it's pretty weak. And so I think that's some of the more frustrating part, where you see these people being like, you can't eat pizza on Ozempic. And it's like, yes, you can. You can't eat a bagel. Yes, you can. We see that kind of stuff all the time, where there's misinformation being churned out by people who are part of the community or adjacent to the community, and it's gross.
And because of the relative ease of how you can inject yourself at home for this class of medications, it gets too easily connected and tied into diet culture, right? Mm-hmm. And so people try to connect us with that too often. So they think we're on a diet, or they try to lump us in with that. So you have the Kardashians trying to scoop us in with them, or they try to put their hooks into us and are like, hey, you want these extra vitamins, or you want this here, or you want that. And it's like, leave us the hell alone. We are just trying to make a lifetime change here. Leave us alone.
And that kind of leads me into my next question for you guys too, is do you think GLP-1s are being overprescribed? And do you think there should be stricter requirements for screenings before someone is allowed to use a GLP-1?
I actually believe they are underprescribed.
I mean, just look at the American Heart Association recommending that they're the frontline treatment for cardiovascular disease now, rather than jumping to weight loss surgery. But you also have a very broken healthcare system for both bariatrics and GLP in this country, to where you have insurers going around the fact that a medication has an indication for a particular thing, like say sleep apnea, and yet still denying coverage even if their plan covers Zepbound. And I've known several people who have actually had it taken away under the sleep apnea indication that it's actually approved for by the FDA. And now another patient just told me their insurance company is requiring monthly blood work, but the insurance company won't pay for it. Yeah, and another patient told me blood work is being denied for them because they have the code morbid obesity. Because they're overweight, the insurance company will no longer pay for something. So that is really where the problem lies. And I didn't have coverage. So I'm very passionate about that particular usage. I've been on compound the entire time. I've been very successful on compound the entire time, but I had to go and source it myself. I had to go and find a provider. I had to go and get the treatment that I deserved, the care that I deserved, or access to the tool. And I paid the price for it because I determined it was worth it. And I could have had bariatric surgery again. Of course, I had insurance coverage for that. But
so do you think that these things are being subscribed more to people who don't really need it because they fit the mold of what they're selling as, like you were saying, that this person was denied because they were considered being mostly obese, someone who actually needs it? Do you think it's being prescribed to other people because they don't fall into those categories and they think that's what's better?
No,
I think in general they're not being made available to people.
I think it's you have a system that is profit driven, and you also have one side of that equation that doesn't want to put out the money for it to pay for it because it eats into their profit right now, rather than getting people healthy. What I find kind of rich about insurance premiums is we pay those every month or bi-weekly if it's coming out of our paycheck or something like that. And, the less claims that we have as an individual, the more money the insurance company makes, because then they're not paying money out the other side. So wouldn't they want us to be healthy overall? But then we've got these middlemen in the middle who are marking up the prices of everything just so that they can get a cut of the action. And, they're actually associated with the insurance companies as well. So it's a terrible system, and not enough people who there is a telehealth boom for these medications. Compound blew up because insurance companies and PBMs failed. That's what it is. At the end of the day, the healthcare system failed, and the other half of the healthcare system that actually cared created a ecosystem that cared.
Because the only requirements for these medications, this class of medications, was a BMI requirement. That's it.
Do you feel like they were vilified for trying to help? Because again, you hear a lot about people are out for a cash grab. Do you feel like the people who really care and wanted to get this tool or the medication out to people who really needed it, do you feel like they were vilified for it so it could be more controlled by insurance companies? And again, they want to protect their bottom line.
Yes, I think the compounding companies have been vilified in a way that's completely unfair. And I say that as someone who's on name brand medication and is not an affiliate with a compounding company. I believe very strongly that what happened in the system is what Zach just said. Our system failed. Our medical system is a complete failure. And to the last question, I will say that I think these medications are both overprescribed and underprescribed all at one time. And so our system has failed, and so there are people who giving us people access. Because if you're 40 pounds overweight, are you going to have bariatric surgery? No, but your life is not going to be extended. You may not live to see your kid walk down the aisle. And what are you willing to do in order to do that? What are you willing to do in order to live long enough, a little bit longer for time with your family. And here's the thing, the insurance companies are fighting us every step of the way. I've had to go through multiple PA denials, and I have type 2 diabetes, and I can't get a type 2 diabetes med. I'm told my A1C is under control now. You don't get cured from type 2 that way. And the system has completely failed us. And I thank God for the compounding companies. And I think the stuff that goes on where people vilify compounding, when you're in the GLP-1 community, what you see is when the shortages came about and we all had to go out and sometimes get compound just to not be able to stay on our medications, we all realized that compound isn't this scary thing. What scares me is the fact that we attack the compounding companies and we don't attack the gray market. Because there are people mixing this stuff in their kitchen from stuff they're buying from China that comes to them directly. That is dangerous.
Oh.
That is where we need to focus our attention.
What is, for someone who doesn't know much about GLP, what is a compound compared to a regular GLP? What's the difference?
So
Go ahead, Jay.
So the difference is, so the brand name version is by Eli. The patent is owned by Eli Lilly or Novo Nordisk, right? That they make Ozempic and Wegovy and Zepbound and Mounjaro. They own the patents. They did the research for that, right? But because there were shortages, they couldn't keep up with demand for the medication. So the FDA says compounding pharmacies, they can make duplicates of it and out of the patent, and they can sell duplicate copies of that exact medication to people. And even though it is still under patent. And basically but those compounded versions are licensed by the state, and they are not licensed by the FDA. So they are not under as strict of a regulation as the major corporations, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are.
So let's just say
It's also almost like a generic brand.
Yes, if you were in the hospital, these are the exact same companies that are doing all the medications that you're getting that are compounded. So if you go to the hospital at any point and you're getting saline, all these things, it's coming through the exact same compounding pharmacy. So it's not as scary as people make it out to seem, because I'm telling you, if you're in the hospital, you're probably going to the exact same pharmacy that the people who are getting compound are getting it from. Mm-hmm. That's why the gray market's scary, but not the compounding.
However, the gray market is the raw ingredients. They are coming from places like China and India that are completely unregulated by any state or the FDA. They are raw ingredients like the base peptides and things like that, where you have to reconstitute it with ingredients yourself at home. And they're labeled as not made for human consumption because they're allowed to be sold to test laboratories and things, to be tested on animals and things like that. And you aren't supposed to actually be sold to individuals.
That is wild.
But that's a loophole. And so people are using it for themselves, although they're not technically supposed to.
And what's even crazier is they're not even really doing tirzepatide anymore. Retatrutide, Kegrasema, these are medications coming that aren't even FDA approved. And it's like, well, if I'm going to buy it on the gray market, why wouldn't I buy the best thing that hasn't been even approved yet? And that's what's scary, right? It's really scary.
But it's supply and demand. It's people who are out there looking for this and not wanting, because it's not, especially because it's not covered by the insurance. They're willing to take that risk and put whatever they want into their body.
But that the system created the demand for that, because they came after the compounding, which I personally believe a shortage still very much exists. But Novo and Lilly came after compounding, and a lot of people lost access to it. And where did those people go? Because they couldn't afford direct programs. They went to the cheaper option, and they're not necessarily getting care from a medical provider either. That's the scary part to me.
Because Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, they cannot supply enough medication to meet demand for everyone that needs these medications. They literally just cannot. And the insurance companies will not approve everyone that needs these medications currently.
And think about this for a moment. 50% of the United States is obese, right? And bariatric surgery is something people are willing to do in my situation, right? When you're sitting at 360 pounds. But obesity is not that for everybody. And suddenly it's like you put a bottle of water in the middle of a desert and everyone's going to fight over it because it hadn't been there before.
Yeah.
And people want to extend their lives.
Yeah, I mean, for us, that have had bariatric surgery, it got to the point where there were no other options for us to take, and we were willing to, to cut, 80% of our stomach out just to be able to survive and live and to watch, our kids grow up, or to, again, fear of death will drive you to do a lot of things. And it causes desperation, and you'll do anything to survive. It's fight or flight. And if you're given an option to survive, you're going to take whatever risk it is to get it.
Just imagine that we're at such a critical juncture that if we actually just were able to revise the system, we could create a generation that didn't have childhood obesity. That is wild to me. Is if we cleaned up our food, we had better access to healthcare, we could change the lives of future generations.
And I mean, I look at things of how, when I was, my kid's age. I mean, we're only talking, I got out of high school 30 years ago. If I go back another 10 years there, you go back 40 years, 50 years, the difference between what children grow up with and what they're provided, there's a difference. We were more active when we were younger compared to this generation of kids. Unless you're forcing them out the door, everything is sold to be in front of their face or in their hands. No one goes out anymore. And to see kids out there playing sports just to play sports, I don't even see that anymore. My neighborhood is the quietest neighborhood I've ever seen. I don't see kids riding bikes. I don't see them out there running around. Yeah. I mean, there is a complete difference. I have to force my kids to go out, and it's like a fight.
I agree with you completely, but I think what we fail to recognize in this country is that ultra-processed foods, right? The foods that we eat are poison and didn't exist. If there's a great book out, and I don't want to say the name of the book because I'm afraid it would cause some sort of violation because it has some of those words in it, but by Dr. Larry Kessler, who was the head of the FDA under George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton, and also ran Operation Warp Speed, who's been on a GLP-1 himself. And the book takes you through the food system and what it does to our bodies and causes the eating problems that we all have had, and why in 2025 so many of us need these medications, where in 1987 it was like 20% of the population and now it's 50. Yeah. I think we have to look at the food system to understand. And it's not the dyes and it's not the seed oils. It's all this other stuff that we're not talking about. No one's talking about.
The food science has gone off the rails. They're designed to make the foods more addictive, literally designed to make it more addictive.
They're now designing food to make GLPs not work as well. There's articles about it.
Mm-hmm.
You hear about synthetic foods now, things that aren't actually natural food. It's just supposed to be food, or it's a good food alternative.
But that's what's been out there since we were kids and we didn't realize it, right? Yeah. Literally stuff is aerated. It's made to make sure it has the right amount of crunch for your brain to be addicted to it.
If you don't actually see it in front of you, then it's not happening. So it's a sad state of the world, and it's we
incentivize it. We incentivize it, and we have to de-incentivize, this behavior somehow.
And it's also pricing on a lot of stuff. You go food shopping, and what's the more expensive thing to buy? And half of us are on a budget in this country, or 80% of us, whatever it is. We're on a budget where we can only afford so much food each week, and you're almost kind of forced into it, or you run the risk of starving. For a lot of people, that's a huge worry.
When you think of the supermarket, every aisle is just filled with those foods that are made to cause problem. The edges of the supermarket is where you find the whole food, right? But the vast majority of Stop and Shop is going to be aisles of stuff that is meant to get you hooked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we are coming on the top of the hour here, guys. It's been great to learn all these different things about GLP-1s from you guys. I wanted to ask each of you guys and give you guys a chance to answer this question before we sign off. What advice would you give someone who's curious about GLP-1s but unsure if it's right for them? And we'll start with you, Mike.
So it's interesting. I was just thinking about the fact that the reason I did GLP-1 over bariatric was because I could start it and stop it, right? I could go on, see how I reacted to it, where with surgery, once I did it, I had done it and I couldn't undo it. And if it didn't feel right to me, it was going to be a problem, right? And so that's the reason I started with GLP-1. Truthfully, these medications are probably best served in relation to both, right? That's what's coming up from the endocrinologist right now. I probably would have been better served starting with a bariatric, with GLP-1, go into bariatric, and then maybe to get myself down at the end, more GLP-1. But I would say, if you're willing to think about it, it's the kind of thing you can test out first, because it's not going to hurt you to discontinue if you then want to make your decision to go to bariatric after.
What about you, Zach?
Every journey has a different starting point for someone else. Like I started mine with bariatrics because GLPs weren't even a mainstream thing when I, chose to have surgery for the first time. Over a decade ago. But really, at the end of the day, my biggest piece of advice is whether you go down a bariatric path or a GLP path, is don't be afraid of having that conversation. And if your doctor is not receptive to you about either of them, change the table, flip it, set a new place setting, get a different provider that's willing to listen to you and hear out your actual health concerns. We have to be advocates for ourselves at this point, and you should pick a provider that is willing to advocate for you. And just on a quick side note of that, Mike and I will be in Washington next week advocating on Capitol Hill, not just for GLP-1s, but obesity care in general. So if you have the ability to advocate for it, do it. Or if they're in your own little way, find a way, because we have to be a loud voice and loud presence. And that's not just GLP-1s, that's not just bariatrics, that's this whole community all together. We need all the tools to fight this disease.
And all I have to say is you have 7 days. That's it. You have 7 days to try GLP-1. That's all it takes is 7 days to dip your toes into the water. To obviously talk to your medical provider about it, do your research on it. But you take one injection. If you really hate it that much after 7 days, don't do it ever again. But it's 7 days just to see what the experience is like. If you don't like it, don't do it again. It's 7 days. It's better to start a journey and to see if it's worth your time than not start it, because damn, being obese really sucks, and you definitely know what that's like. So 1 week, it's just 1 week.
So part of having you guys come on, and I know, Jay, you had your reservations originally when we invited you last month, because, obviously, the main focus of our platform is bariatrics. But we talked about how we connect with the community. And Mike, I had mentioned this to you as far as like, how do we tie in our journeys together? Because again, the weight loss community, we all experience the same thing. We had a live last year with Jamie. We had AJ on. It was one of our best episodes that we've ever had, and we had a lot of great feedback from people because, again, it was about tying the community together and not vilifying anyone for taking a different path. You know, how do we tie each other together and support each other, you know, regardless of the tool that we're using, whether it's bariatrics, natural weight loss, GLP-1. What would be your best advice as far as how do you bring the communities together? How do we mesh our communities together so we can be there for each other, whether, you know, we may not understand. Again, we talk about being empathetic in our community because, again, unless you take 80% of the time, you really don't understand what we're going through. But you could be sympathetic in your journey. But again, we all need to make sure that we're getting our water in. We're all making sure that we get our protein in. We're all making sure that we have movement going on. And our ultimate goal is the same thing, is to have a healthier lifestyle and to live a longer life. So how would you guys tie that together and how you guys could be more supportive of bringing the communities together?
So let me just start with two things. The first thing is what Zach was just talking about. There are organizations that are about the disease of obesity, right? Mm-hmm. So the Obesity Action Coalition meeting in DC next week, if anyone from the bariatric community is going to be there, there's it's going to be people from the body positivity movement, the bariatric surgery movement, and the GLP-1 movement. And these are the kind of spaces that we can come together. And the second thing is the science is really showing that these are not mutually exclusive treatments. They can be very supportive treatments. My friends who had bariatric surgery 10, 15 years ago are now on GLP-1s because they went from 35 to 45, 50, and they sort of got that middle-age pouch despite the fact they were on this, and now they're using that to get them over the line. And that's what's coming out of the endocrinology meetings right now. That's what's coming out of the research. So I don't think we should see ourselves as like opposites. I think we should see each other in tandem and figure out how we support all of those things together, because it's one disease that we're all fighting, and we're using different tools, and we may have to use all of these different tools in different orders, just like Zach did, just like lots and lots of people do.
Any follow-up there, Jay?
No, I think Mike nailed it, because ultimately it's going to be a blending of the communities one way or the other. And we need to support people wherever they are in their journeys. And ultimately, I think obesity is the enemy, and we are not each other's enemy. Obesity is the enemy. And so anytime we can get together and just have open conversations, and, you know, the more just hopping into each other's lives on TikTok back and forth we can do, the better as well. So I love this space.
Men's panel. I know you guys had a men's panel not too long ago. I really appreciate that. You know, always getting the guys together and, guys being there to support each other, because I'm not sure how it is for you guys as far as like men sharing their journey and being open about their journey and actually being vulnerable about their journeys, because we're a very small community in the bariatrics. We're only 20% of, the bariatric community. So there's very few of us on this side. So I appreciate what you're doing on that side of the weight loss community. But where can we all find you guys? So if you're not following you guys on TikTok, are you guys on any other platforms?
So I'm on TikTok and Instagram under the same handle at @lucky_fins, FINV.
Same. Those are my two main platforms. I do have a YouTube channel, but it's kind of gone dormant at the moment.
I'm best here.
Well, thank you guys very, very much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out and having this discussion. I don't see why, in the future, why we wouldn't, maybe get together and we could all have maybe a larger discussion, invite some more people, and, we could just bro it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should call these things obesity panels, and it solves the whole problem.
Yeah,
right?
I love that idea. And Mike, if you are local, we should connect. We can hang out or something.
I'm right on .av, buddy. Like,
That's crazy. I can't believe I didn't realize you were in the Boston area. That's hilarious.
Yep. I hide my accent.
Yeah, I don't. Everyone
Tony can't.
Mike, where'd you park your car?
It's in the driveway.
No, Mike, where'd you park your car?
In Harvard Yard. I grew up with a very, very thick accent. Trust me.
Oh, believe me, I grew up in Jamaica Plain. My dad grew up in Dorchester.
My mom grew up in Jamaica.
And there goes Shar with the Yankees talk.
Yeah. Whatever, Shar. We want to talk about accents. That New York accent. Woo! So, thank you guys. We really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you, everyone, down in the comments. I love the engagement. I love the 26,000 likes tonight, guys. And I saw at least 40 people in here at one point. So we appreciate everyone hanging out with us and enjoying the conversation. Biggie, you want to send us off?
First off, thank you guys for hopping on with us today. My name's Biggie.
I'm Tony D, and this has been our Barry Mail Experience. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Have a good night, guys.